bro, we are never going to see again. A couple of weeks ago, you remember we were talking about this, and we looked up like this old Alabama roster. And I told you, Trayvon Diggs, who is the best cornerback for the Dallas Cowboys and has been a consistent Pro Bowler and $100 million player, went to Alabama like his brother, Stephon. And then there's 5 receivers. It's like Ruggs and Smith, and there's 5 receivers better than him. So he plays corner. Never in a million years would that ever happen now.
Or the iconic photo that was like two
Mac Jones and Bryce.
Yeah, you will never see that ever again. You're never going to see that photo ever again.
I mean, they brought in, you know what I mean? Like, Georgia had to play this kid. You know, they lost Carson Beck, he's not going down in any SEC lore. And then they bring in this kid, Gunner, who's actually pretty good.
By the way, Carson Beck driving a Lamborghini.
Yeah.
But look at his girlfriend, bro.
But by the way, like, when it was Hurts. That's who it was. It was Hurts and Mac and Tua. But I mean, like, when Jalen Hurts wasn't getting it done in the SEC championship game, like,
it was the national championship.
Well, right. Tua comes in.
Nick Saban's whole career at Alabama, this is oversimplifying it, but a lot of it was his backups were future NFL players at all times.
Yes.
You can't do that anymore.
Ohio State was doing that.
Because those guys are not staying with you. They're not going. It's not wait your turn anymore. It's where can I get the most money? Transfer rules and NIL.
And I do buy his deal. I do buy his deal about not necessarily. I don't think that it was just because Alabama. I do buy his deal that, like, everybody knew they could come here and get drafted in the first round. Like, that's a thing. Like, you know what I mean? But that was the pot of gold. Now the pot of gold is at the beginning.
Yeah, the pot of gold is like a pot of, it's a pile of cash.
You don't have to go in the first round.
No.
But I do think that, like, I don't think those guys were all getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars. I think a lot of them did go to Alabama because they knew that was the best chance for them to get drafted, not because Alabama bought them all, but rather, so I do buy that part of it. But I will say, most SEC schools, we're all competing against each other for players, and we all know, you know, and same way with, you know, you cover sport in college basketball. It's not like all these guys just go to these places for fun. Like, but it was all under the table. Like, none of that stuff. Now, you don't have to do it under the table, so it's just so spread out.
And you don't need the recruiting skills that you used to have. Every coaching search that used to open in college basketball, you'd be like, and the Duke job's open. And somebody'd say, or the Kentucky, whatever. And somebody'd say, well, okay, what about so-and-so? But can he recruit at this level? He's never recruited this part of the country, or he's never recruited that level. Could he recruit? It doesn't matter anymore. You could take anybody, put them at Duke, and it's like saying, can the Lakers recruit? It doesn't matter who, as long as it's LA and you got the money, you can recruit. Same thing, it's Duke and you've got more money. You can get players. The whole, can he recruit? Does he know how to connect? Doesn't it no longer? Do general managers have good personalities? Have you ever talked about that? It doesn't matter.
Right.
Do you have cap space? That's what I need to know.
Dude, there is a guy we're watching the other day, the Ohio State game. The freaking starting running back from Ole Miss is splitting carries at Ohio State.
Right. And
you know what I'm saying?
Right.
That guy would have gotten 30 carries a game at Ole Miss.
And do you know what that does? All that does is, so this young man goes, he takes more money from Ohio State to go play less, and it gives Lane Kiffin what he needs to go back to his boosters and say,
yep,
this is going to keep happening.
Yep.
And so guess who had more NIL money this year than he had before?
Yep.
So that won't happen again.
Yep.
That's what these coaches, that's how.
I do think it's going to balance out, man. It's going to balance out everywhere.
Yeah, the depth. Kirby was doing the same thing at Georgia. He was stockpiling until this NIL stuff started. He was stockpiling all these guys. Ohio State was doing it. Alabama was doing it. And now you just can't stockpile.
Well, the other thing is the teams that would win recruiting day is what mattered. Yeah. And that's not what matters anymore.
No.
You ain't got to win signing day.
Oh,
that was like... We used to have we used to bring Barton Simmons on every signing day because it was the biggest deal. Oh my God!
Oh yeah.
This guy just flipped. And
ESPN used to when there was only one national signing day for football. Their entire day was scheduled around it, like ESPN's day.
Dude, the only freshman I know, I swear to God, and I love college football. The only freshman I know is Bryce Underwood. I'm not kidding.
Coming in next year.
Yes.
I was like, you know a lot of freshmen from this year.
No. That's coming in. And I only know that because of the Barstool,
buddy,
$7 million.
Juju, Juju that's going to Colorado. with the nice hair?
No, I don't.
But, yeah.
Okay, see, that's your
Okay, but
world.
here to your point, college basketball signing day wasn't as big as college football, but still a day, still
Yeah.
a thing. It came and went. I don't even remember it in November at some point. It doesn't matter anymore.
AJ DeBansta is the only
Yeah.
one I know,
But
and that's because he's getting a bazillion dollars.
Well, I was having this conversation with Scott Drew, and he said, what's interesting is that used to signing day would pop off in November, and at that moment, you had a pretty good idea of how you were going to be next year and how the rest of the country is going to be next year. You kind of know who you're losing. Now you know who you're bringing in. You know what everybody else is probably losing, what they're bringing in. Now you have no idea who's going to be good in November because it's all going to be tied to the transfer portal. And you can't reasonably assume that schools are going to lose players the way you're used to because, yeah, Duke's going to lose Cooper Flagg, but there's somebody who might be projected 28th in the draft, and that person would have no-brainer not even thinking about it in the draft 10 years ago. But now if Alabama says, come back, make $5 million to play one more year, and then go be the 13th pick in the draft, like that's happening. Mark Sears at Alabama would not be in school right now if not for NIL.
Oh, for sure.
He would be
not.
just he'd be playing 3 minutes a game for the Kings or something, but that's what he would be doing.
Dude, I'm watching Minnesota last night, and there's this segment. Were you guys watching this game at all?
I saw
that's why I checked you
the
out about
Boston
Josh
game.
Minot.
I saw the end of it. I watched
Minot
the last,
had
like,
the
4
dunk,
minutes.
he had the three,
Yeah,
and
I
whatever,
was like-
and
I
I'm
was
thinking
like,
to
bro,
myself,
what is this
bro,
making?
Josh Minot could still be in Memphis.
Yeah.
But you ready for this?
He'd
If
be like a
Josh
junior.
Minot existed right now in this moment,
Yeah.
He'd be making a fortune.
they would pay him to come back to college.
For sure.
Before he went and was the whatever pick in the second round of that draft. He would have been paid big time money to come back to college.
Yep.
Unless there was like friction or personal problems.
Right.
But that's the perfect type of guy that would have been paid a lot of money to come back to college.
Right.
Yeah, I saw him last night. I was like, wait, Josh Minot getting rotation minutes since when?
And was like making plays.
Yeah, I was
I
like,
did
okay.
hear his name like in the past week where
was
somebody
so
was like,
weird.
and he's been playing well. It was one of those, I ain't heard his name in 2 years, but I heard
It's
it.
crazy,
like a
right?
week ago, right.
And well, and I think that as we switch to the basketball game that took place last night, boy, Devin was so worried about T-shirt game last night.
look, bro.
But isn't this a good example of kind of where Memphis stands right now and their ability to be able to go and fill out a roster? And then you look at their competition last night, and it's like, how are they ever getting players? Because anybody they get good is going to get poached.
To Memphis.
Right? Right? They're
If you,
gonna get
have a good,
poached.
if you have a good AAC player,
Oh, you're gonna be
he
on
coming to Memphis next
Yeah,
year.
you come PJ, Kobe Rogers. They all on
It
Memphis.
felt very Florida Gulf Coasty in the sense that
Oh, that's over.
no, I'm saying
Yeah.
there was like a run.
Yeah.
It was a moment in time,
Yeah.
but you're not going to be able to sustain that. That's a one-time deal.
It's over. Like Memphis even has a more exaggerated advantage in its league than maybe anybody other than Gonzaga, and maybe even including
Because who can get players?
nobody else. Like Tennessee has a ton of money. Alabama has a ton of money. So does Auburn. So does Kentucky. So does Arkansas. In Memphis, it's like we can go buy. I mean, they wouldn't bought Tyrese Hunter.
Yeah.
They wouldn't bought a Texas player.
Who could have gone anywhere.
There ain't nobody else in the AAC that can go buy a Texas player. All right.
But how much is Dane? Because Dane's Illinois, right?
Yes, that was money too. That was
That's
real
Big
money.
Ten.
Well, how about this? We know that Tyreek.
Memphis has always had enough people that care about basketball that you're going to have
know
money.
that Tyreek Smith. I was told at least by somebody close to the situation that Tyreek Smith had a contract with Memphis for $500,000, roughly. All right, and he ain't even one of the 5 best guys they brought in.
Do you
so what
know-
are the rest of these guys getting?
Do you know I was talking?
Memphis is spending real money, and nobody else in that league can.
I talked to a guy yesterday who is friends with one of his buddies is one of the board members of a collective at a big Big Ten school, right? And he told me that the way, because I thought this was fascinating. I was like, man, it's even the playing field, hasn't it? And I was like, these guys have so much money that they're making whatever. And he said, one of the things, we were talking about the Bryce Underwood thing, and he was saying, he's like, I wonder how that works and if there's a contract or whatever. And he said, from what I gather, and I don't know if this is true across the board, but I've always thought about it like when you were just talking about that deal, what they were saying is, what he was explaining to me is that these guys, they accept that they're going to get this money, but the people with the money are smart enough to know that in many cases, this is a week-to-week thing. So they are paying them, like, you know what I mean?
Right.
You say, hey, you're going to get $150,000 to come here, but you're basically getting 10 installments of 15 grand, right?
That's
and
right.
so if you play, right, and obviously if you're injured, we're still going to pay you, right? But you can't just quit on the team and you can't just transfer and you can't just whatever. Like nobody's giving you a lump sum, right? They're actually getting paid almost like you would with a paycheck.
And I would bet the
You know what I
Memphis
mean?
Collective ain't giving out those lump sums anymore either.
For sure
No,
not.
especially after that
Right.
that idiot.
Well, and I have always believed that that's what happened with Mikey Williams. That they gave him the money because you would have just cut
Cut ties,
ties.
right.
But there was something where it was like, bro, if there's any way this can work out, because we've already spent a
they
fortune.
made a down payment.
The way,
Yes.
the way
Yes.
these things are going to
whip.
have to start being written creatively is something along the lines of you are guaranteed X amount of dollars per week, totaling X amount of dollars
Yep.
for every week that you are enrolled in school, something like that.
Yes.
Because you can't have the Tyreek Smith situation happening again. Like people lost real money on that deal. Like real.
Oh,
money.
they paid him.
Oh yeah.
He got the money.
I don't know.
The
I don't
check's
think,
cash.
I don't think he got all $500,000, but he got a significant amount of
he's-
money.
And never played.
Never played.
Yeah, that's a mistake.
Yeah.